Hey there, Chrissy here at A Little Glam, A Lot of Mom. Thanks for being here. Today's video is going to be an updated nature journaling or nature notebooking card. So we have several new books to inspire us, so I'll start with our newer resources. This new one is Peggy Dean's Guide to Nature Drawing and Watercoloring. Learn to sketch, ink, and paint flowers, plants, trees, and animals. This is an easy-to-use nature drawing and watercolor guide. There's a fun, informative section on the history of art, products, and supplies. There's basic drawing techniques like shapes and curves, basic watercoloring techniques like wet on dry, wet on wet, blending, and brush strokes. Then the author gets into a flower study, how to draw and watercolor 9 different flowers, a plant study, a fish study, and then putting things together like bouquets, map and ocean scenes, forests, and then a focus on a few more animals. Overall, a good guide, jam-packed with information and beautiful art. Everyday Watercolor. Learn to paint watercolor in 30 days. This one is also new to us, and I picked it up specifically so that I can work through it with my teen daughter. From strokes to shapes and patterns, through 30 prompts, we'll cover the basics in watercolor skills. Keeping a Nature Journal by Claire Walker Leslie. This resource we've had for a while, so I'm not sure if I featured it in my last video or not. It's full of engaging exercises and prompts. But what I love the most about this book is that more than just drawing instructions or tutorials, this book helps hone your powers of nature observation through the seasons of the year. Another favorite thing about this resource are the features of Claire Walker Leslie's portfolio. Beautiful and inspiring, and in my opinion, every naturalist should own this resource. Nature's Art Box, 65 cool projects to make with natural materials. Not so much for nature journaling exactly or nature notebooking. However, this does inspire us to get outdoors and forage for natural materials to get creative. So there are projects using vines and twigs, cones, also gourds, husks and seeds, clay, stones and shells, making natural paints and ink and dyes. From t-shirts to gourd dolls, flower pressing, stamping to twig baskets. 2 new books sent to us by the author Kim Andrews and her publishing company, so thank you to them. The first one is a camping journal for kids. Record your adventures in the great outdoors. I'm going to order a second copy for my 7-year-old so that my 8 and 7-year-olds can alternate this between their nature sketchbooks. Nature journals that are prompted can be a great alternative to the days you want something less elaborate, dare I say artistic, than a watercolor entry from scratch, for example. So I really like the first section of this book with the informative, helpful guides for being outdoors. She calls it a toolkit, like reading the sky, for example. Identifying common cloud types would give you a general idea as to the weather to expect. The larger portion of the journal are for entries, recording your entries like date, location, field notes, weather, and a space for a sketch. My first nature book by Kim Andrew for the younger naturalists, a good introduction of the natural world from skies to ground, oceans, forests, weather and seasons, and animals like mammals, aviary, reptiles. The text is brief for the younger children to keep their attention, but still very informative. And more, I appreciate very much that the text is not dumbed down. So reading this out loud to a little one will promote language development, vocabulary development, and lastly, we enjoy the whimsical nonfiction photography. So we also have some Florida specific resources in here. I'd recommend owning books and field guides specifically for your state or region. So we have a book on foraging in Florida and one on butterflies. A year of forest school, outdoor play, and skill building fun for every season. Again, this resource is not so much for nature journaling, but it is for inspiring us to get outside and play. Structured around the 4 seasons of the year, each chapter is packed with games, crafts, activities to get your little naturalist to develop new skills and exploring the outdoors. We could not nature journal without inspiration from the infamous Julia Rothman collection. We own Nature, Food, Farm, and Ocean Anatomy. Everyone in my household loves these books, from the youngest up to my husband. Wonderful books for quick referencing, to build upon for a nature or unit study, and for nature journaling. The illustrations are awe-inspiring. We also keep a few, I guess we can call them like field guides. This is Nat Geo's Backyard Guide to Insect and Spiders, a colorful guide, classic Nat Geo photography, a fun book to take with you out in the garden and identify new insects, or my Bella just likes reading through it randomly. Take Along Guide series. This one is Birds, Nests, and Eggs, and we only have one book in this series. And although we did enjoy this one, we've learned how and where the birds featured build their nests and about their young ones. This resource only features 15 birds, and so it's not my first choice for a field guide for that reason. These are small posters from the U.S. Department of Forestry and Agriculture, several posters to quickly identify things like tracks, fish, burrows, fungi, trees, and more. Great to take outdoors. I also like to collect informational brochures to our local nature, like this one on our lagoon. Another are these Florida venomous snake flashcards, helpful to review every so often to brush up on identifying these dangerous snakes and be prepared in case we do encounter one. Another bird identification book, and this is a big favorite because this book is actually to identify bird songs of 12 backyard birds. I believe there's another book in this series that we definitely need soon. We also love the Fandex family field guides, and although not so practical to take outdoors, we do utilize these a lot once we're back inside. The die-cut images make it easy to identify the animal. We have birds and butterflies so far, and it's jam-packed with field notes and information on 50 different types. I think I've also featured these in the past. These are Shapes in Nature cards, a fun resource from Chicky and Rue. My youngest have enjoyed taking these outside to look for shapes in nature. In this basket, I've also stored a compass/whistle necklace, a magnifying glass and whistle set by Hape Toys, and our Audubon bird call. So we have some watercolor paintbrushes. We do need a new set actually, some watercolor pigments, and our most popular tool are watercolor pens. Our most utilized medium at the moment for nature journaling are watercolor colored pencils, and paired with the watercolored pens, it's just super easy. We fill these pens with water to blend in the watercolor pencil for a nice watercolor effect, easy and beginner friendly. Moving on to the next tier, we have some microscopes. My favorite actually is a handheld one for on the go. This little guy really does pack a punch. I also keep a bag of supplies and tools to go with our microscopes, like slides. These are made by Learning Resources, all sorts of Petri and observation dishes, tweezers. We recently foraged this skin shedding from what we believe is a rat snake near the lagoon, and so I find that having these little observation dishes are great for these types of finds. We are ready to upgrade our tabletop microscope, but we have enjoyed this one thoroughly. It's been juiced. This is a beginner-friendly microscope from Amazon, and what was neat is that it came with an attachment to use with a cell phone camera, so that was lots of fun. Then we also have various art supplies, like these colored pens that we use for annotations and labeling in our journal entries. Our sweet flower press, we have it in here because we just finished pressing so many flowers in the summer. We have some block crayons here, some from Stockmar, and the other set is from Falana. 2 years later, these are still going strong, completely worth the investment. We mostly use these to decorate edges or make borders in journal entries. Also going strong has been our Lyra opaque watercolor palette. We'll need a replacement soon. As you can see, this has been very used, but this has lasted us a good while and great for beginners. My teen daughter is ready for a more professional grade palette, but for the young ones, I'll repurchase another Lyra palette. Speaking of my teen, these Prisma Color Premier line colored pencils are hers. She has 2 sets, Under the Sea and the Botanical Garden set. She loves the quality, and the tin cases are super convenient for on the go. Our highly popular Arteza Expert line watercolor pencils. These are the pencils we pair with our watercolor brush pens, although they could also be used with a regular watercolor paintbrush and a cup of water for the same watercolor effect. Faber-Castell beeswax crayons, a budget-friendly brand for wonderful quality beeswax crayons, super vibrant and creamy. This pouch I keep some stencils. In this pouch I keep stencils for decorating journal entries, and then we also have our binding kit for putting together our own journals. A tool that is a must in my opinion is a paper cutter. This one is by West Scott. Some of our current journals, let's start with my teen daughter. She is loving this one by a brand called Moleskin. This is the art watercolor hardcover album, 5 by 8 1/4. There are 72 pages of cold pressed cotton blend watercolor paper. She says it holds watercolor on both sides of the pages really well. She's actually convinced me to get one for myself. They are about in the $15 to $20 range. Meanwhile, I've been using this spiral bound notebook. I stocked up on these years ago at a Walmart at about $5 a piece, and this is the last of them. The pages, however, are multimedia and not watercolor. My 7 and 8-year-old are loving these sketch pads from Target, and I've promised my 4-year-old one too on our next Target trip. Since they're not using these for a wet on wet, really only beeswax crayons and watercolor pencils, it does a fine job at the light brush of water. I will say that they're bulky and heavy, but for $5, this works well for their ages and skill in nature journaling. I've been talking about these large drawing pads by Strathmore for years, but we really do love them. They hold a light amount of water really well, and we can keep these large or cut them down to any size we want, especially when binding our own nature journals. We also always have Strathmore watercolor paper. This is the heavyweight 140-pound for true watercoloring projects like wet on wet or wet on dry with our pigments. And another must-have I have found is tracing paper. Again, Strathmore is our preferred brand for paper. Because young children could never have enough paper, I always like to keep extra paper for doodles, and I pick up inexpensive drawing paper for them. This is the Royal and Lanickle Essentials brand, and this way they're not going through all of our nice quality printer paper. Alright guys, that's it for today's video. I hope that you enjoyed it, and if you did, please let me know by giving me a thumbs up, dropping me a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done that already. I hope that today's video has inspired you to get outside in nature with your children, especially now during the fall season. Is such a pleasant time to go see the changings of the year and find a little corner in nature to stay in and keep you inspired.